Robert Kiyosaki, the writer of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, had really two influential fathers in his life. And when his story was heard by the masses, people were amazed. Two dads and an unimaginable wealth. We all could have something like this in our lives, right? We all could learn something or two from these two dads. Can you imagine the influence these two different fathers can have in his life? And we will tell you all about this story and eventual future in this video. You can always subscribe to our channel, Education Investor, for more videos like this. If you already did, let's just get right into it. This book is written from Kiyosaki's point of view on how Rich Dad approached making money and the mistakes Poor Dad made. The first 6 chapters of Rich Dad, Poor Dad make up about 2/3 of the book and cover the 6 lessons Kiyosaki learned from his rich dad. Chapter 1. The Rich Don't Work for Money. People often misunderstand the title of this chapter and mistakenly believe it means that the rich don't work. In fact, the exact opposite is true. Instead of reading the title of the chapter as "The Rich Do Not Work for the Money," Kiyosaki means to say that the rich do not work for money. Notice that by emphasizing the word money, this section takes on a completely different meaning. The truth is that most rich people work very hard, but they go about it differently than most people. Rich people and people who want to be rich work and learn every day how to make money work for them. As Rich Dad says, the poor and middle class work for the money. The rich makes the money work for them. Kiyosaki also points out that a regular job is only a short-term solution to the long-term problem or challenge of creating wealth and financial freedom. It's fear that drives most people to work at a job, fear of not being able to pay their bills, fear of being fired, fear of not having enough money, and fear of starting over. This is the price you pay when you learn a trade or profession and then work for money. Most people become slaves to money and then get angry at their boss. Chapter 2. Why Teach Financial Literacy. The second chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad explains the difference between an asset and a liability. Chapter 2 clarifies that what matters isn't how much money you make, but how much money you keep. An asset is something that's value, that generates income or increases in value, and for which there's a market where the asset can easily be bought and sold. Assets generate income. Assets appreciate in value. Conversely, liabilities take money out of your pocket because of the costs associated with them. When Rich Dad, Poor Dad was first published in 1997, Kiyosaki sparked a great deal of controversy with this statement. That's because a private residence, by definition, isn't an asset unless it increases in value enough to offset the cost of ownership. Rented property, on the other hand, is an asset because it can generate enough passive income to exceed the cost of operating and financing the property. As Kiyosaki writes in Chapter 2 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, want to get rich? Focus your efforts on buying income-producing assets. If you really understand what an asset is, keep liabilities and expenses low. You'll deepen your wealth pillar. Chapter 3. Mind your own business. There are 2 key messages in this chapter. First, pay off your debts and invest in income-generating assets as soon as possible. Second, stay financially healthy by using your time instead of your paycheck to invest as much money as possible in assets. Kiyosaki noted in Chapter 3 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad that most people confuse their job with their business. In other words, they spend their whole lives working in someone else's company and making other people rich. One of our favorite quotes from this passage is, "The main reason why the majority of the poor and middle class are fiscally conservative is because they have no financial base. They have to cling to their jobs and play it safe. They cannot afford to take risks." Chapter 4. The History of Taxes and Corporate Power. In reading this chapter, it is important to keep in mind that Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a motivational book, not to give expert financial or tax advice. For example, he writes about buying a Porsche, which he wrote off as a business expense pre-tax. Buying a high-end luxury car when a much less expensive model would suffice could put an investor on the fast track to an audit of the IRS. But let's leave the Porsche aside, because this chapter is about how to play the investment game smart. The rich understand the power of corporate structures and the tax code and use all legal means to minimize their tax burden. Compare how business owners and investors with corporations such as C Corps, S Corps, or LLCs pay taxes to how most people pay taxes. Business owners with a corporate structure earn, spend, pay taxes. Employees who work for businesses earn, pay taxes, and spend. Note that employees who work for someone else spend their money after taxes, while business owners earn and spend before they pay taxes. Chapter 4 of the book also covers the 4 main components of what Kiyosaki calls financial IQ: accounting, investment strategy, market law, and law. As Rich Dad Poor Dad reminds us, understanding the legal and tax advantages goes a long way towards building long-term wealth. A business, for example, can pay its expenses before it pays taxes, whereas an employee is taxed first and then must try to pay his expenses from what is left over. Corporations also provide legal protection from lawsuits. When someone sues a wealthy person, they often run into a number of legal protections and often find that the wealthy person does not actually own anything in their own name. They control everything, but personally own nothing. Chapter 5. The rich invent money. Inventing money means finding opportunities or businesses that other people do not have the skills, knowledge, resources, or contacts for. In Chapter 5, Rich Dad Poor Dad explains that there are 2 types of investors. Investment packages are bought by people who entrust their money to a developer or fund manager. This is how most people invest, for example, by buying shares in an ETF or putting money into a real estate crowdfunding project. Professional investors take care of their investments themselves, researching the market to find deals that make sense, and then hiring professionals to monitor them on a day-to-day basis. Professional investors have 3 things in common. They recognize opportunities that others have not found. They raise funds for investments. They collaborate with other smart people. Here is our favorite closing thoughts from this chapter. Some people claim there are no real estate bargains where there are, but they are also prime opportunities everywhere that are being overlooked. Most people are not financially savvy enough to recognize the opportunities that are out there. Chapter 6. Work to learn. Do not work for money. Poor Dad was intelligent and well-educated and worked for money because job security meant everything to him. Rich Dad became a millionaire by working to learn. As Kiyosaki writes, I recommend that young people look for jobs that are more about what they will learn than what they will earn. They definitely should think about what skills they want to acquire before they choose a particular job and before they fall into the rat trap. In fact, Kiyosaki did just that. After graduating from college, he joined the Marines and learned the basic business skills of leading and managing people. After serving his country, Kiyosaki joined Xerox, overcame his fear of rejection, and became one of the company's top 5 salespeople before leaving the corporate world to start his own company. And with that, you actually know all you can about this great topic. For more videos, you can always subscribe to our channel, and we would love to see you in the next video. Until then, have a great day and goodbye.